Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, why don't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about yourself.
What else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
Hey, Eugene, how are you?
Hi, Pat.
Eugene Byon, right?
That's close enough, Pat. Thank you.
No. I don't want to be close enough. I want to be perfect.
Byon.
Byon.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you very much. Eugene is from Houston as well, right?
Yes.
And a computer programmer.
Yes, I am, or a nerd, whichever you would like to call it.
Yeah, and now, what does this mean? He knows former pat phrases and other Wheel of Fortune facts.
Yes, I do. During the daytime version of Wheel of Fortune, you used to say, $750 is the top dollar value space for this round. Try not to bankrupt. If you do, you lose your cash, but not your merchandise, because once you buy a prize, it's yours to keep. Here's our first puzzle.
No. It's a real pleasure to meet someone with so much time on his hands. Nice to have you here, Eugene. Let's get on with this thing here.
My name is Eugene Byon, and I live in Tomball, Texas, which is basically in the greater Houston area on the northwest side. For a living, I have been working in IT for pretty much my entire professional career, now serving as an IT transformation coach, helping teams become higher performing, but also very proudly married with 3 lovely but rambunctious children. And happy to see one of them go off to college soon, but entering a whole new world there. I've been on Wheel of Fortune, The Price is Right, the $100,000 Pyramid, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire twice. I've been on Let's Make a Deal, and that I think that's the whole list there. But I've also appeared on shows like as a super fan for 25 Words or Less. And on Person, Place, or Thing. I also co-hosted an episode of HQ Trivia, actually, when HQ Trivia was a thing. And also I appeared in the documentary regarding HQ Trivia that was on HBO Max for a time, called Glitch, The Rise and Fall of HQ Trivia.
Do you own all your game show appearances on tape? I know you sent me links, and I couldn't immediately tell if they were clips or the full episodes.
So I did send a link to a Google Drive that I have, which mostly contains full episodes. It's hard to say whether or not I'm exactly the owner of those episodes because they were recordings, or even one in the case of Wheel of Fortune, where Wheel actually sent me a DVD with the recording on it. And so I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily the owner of all the videos, but I have
only
a copy
that
of them.
if you have copies. Oh, sure. I didn't mean the originals. I just meant, like, do you have them on your shelf or on a flash drive somewhere that you can look back at them?
I sent a link to the email address that I had only today noticed, but you should have that now.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. No, I'll use that for the intro or something.
Okay.
This is my reminder to cut this part out. Oh, what was I just going to ask you? No, I wasn't going to ask you anything. One of my episodes of Millionaire, I was on a Friday, and it carried over into a Monday. But the first, I used to have both of my segments on YouTube, like in one video, and my channel got taken down. I think I must have clicked on a bad link or something, because I got taken down for like spam, which I've never sent. I don't even know what that entails on YouTube, but they took it down, so I lost that video. So I have everything that I've been on saved on a flash drive, except for that first Millionaire episode.
Oh no.
That's the only one that's missing.
I would imagine the game show nerds out there, somebody has got to have a digital or videotape copy of it. It's got to be out there somewhere.
Oh, I know Chuck Donegan has it somewhere. He's listening to this right now. I know he has it organized. He is a good friend of mine, and we go back to like the late 90s, early 2000s era of the game show circle, back back when tape trading was a thing. But one of the amazing things about Chuck's collection is that he has, I mean, he will correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to be something like 20,000, 30,000 episodes of different game shows, and he carries them on a hard drive, and he has them organized not by episode number. He has them organized by the contestants' names. That's just how he remembers them and how he keeps them in order. And to me, that's I can't imagine keeping that much information juggling in my head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that way of sorting, because there are some, especially in the entertainment world, who would say that it's not as much about the contestants as it is about the celebrities that are hosting or the celebrity guests that are on the show, and we're sort of losing that It's that priority or that importance put on the actual civilian contestant. So it's really neat to hear that he has
Absolutely.
that focus.
Sometimes I look back on my love of this type of TV, and I can identify ways in which it kind of shaped my personality or my priorities, or even professionally, just the way that I carry myself or the way that I go for things. When you look at your love of game shows, what do you think it's brought to you as a person?
Oh goodness. I have to think about that one a little bit. The first thing that came to my head was it really did bring me out of my shell. And I want to say that a lot of people, I think I've heard on your podcast say that.
Wait, Eugene, you had a shell? That's insane. I don't believe it.
So, contrary to popular belief, when I was young, I was very loud and outspoken at home, but generally outside of the home, I was pretty shy, and I didn't have a whole lot of friends, and didn't really socialize all that much with my classmates. And during that time, I loved game shows. I loved watching them. I loved playing them. I loved pretending to host them. I think that sort of developed that side of me that I think that was very innate within my personality. But I kept it very, very private. I wouldn't. I would say that it wasn't until uh, maybe graduate school. So some 15 years sort of after getting into game shows that I really started allowing that personality to come out. Although I wouldn't say that was because of game shows per se, as much as it was gaining more confidence in myself and sort of my identity as a person. But I will say that when the first opportunity came to actually be on a game show, when Wheel of Fortune brought their Wheelmobile into the Houston area in 1998, and they said that they would be doing in-person auditions there and doing a contestant search for a special week of shows, something did kind of click in me. Sort of that was a big awakening, I would say, for me. One, realizing that, wow, it's actually possible for me to be on a game show. I had never thought that was something that I could ever do in real life, just in the privacy of my own home with my family. Um, and I think that whole process of applying and getting onto Wheel and playing Wheel, that was a huge turning point for me in terms of just letting it all out. Uh,
That's a very common thing that I've heard among a lot of the contestants that I've talked to, that their first audition is almost like this make or break moment where they've loved this thing for so long and finally it's kind of within arm's reach. And so they're able to get out there and do it. But it's fascinating to me that there seems to be this element of coming to terms with the fact that you love game shows, and coming to terms with the fact that, you used to be introverted, but you have to turn it up. You know what kind of person needs to be on a game show, so you know who you have to be like in the audition. It's just interesting to me that so many of my guests have had that similar kind of step over the threshold.
I'm wondering if maybe it's because growing up, there weren't a whole lot of peers that I was able to share a love of game shows with, other than my late older brother who passed away some 6 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And oh yeah, thank you. And I think when I auditioned for Wheel and I waited in line for 15 hours with 200 other people in front of a waterbed store. When I went to the final audition downtown, I think it was at the Hilton Hotel or something like that. And I was with hundreds of other very excited people trying to get on Wheel of Fortune. And then when I got on the show, all of my colleagues at work going nuts for me, and congratulating me and encouraging me. I think that had a huge factor of realizing that it wasn't, it was something that I could be proud of and didn't necessarily need to, oh, I hate to say this, hide or be ashamed of.
Oh, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I understand that 100%. I've felt the same way for a really long time, because I feel like one of the things that a person needs in terms of like affirmation is somebody else agreeing with them or liking what they're doing or liking what they're into. And when you're into something very narrow, which game shows are a very narrow interest, and you don't really have that ready kind of source of affirmation. Now, like you said, other people aren't into this as much as we are. It does take a long time to be able to. I feel like it takes a long time to even be able to learn to talk about it. Like I remember when I went to the Price is Right for my 18th birthday.
Oh my
and
goodness.
The way it was everything and more, and it put me on a path that has dictated the rest of my life. And I could say a million words about it, but I went for my 18th birthday, and that was the first time I had ever socialized with people who liked game shows in that way. There's a way to like game shows that you like, Eugene, and that I like them, and that the people that we know and our mutual friends like them. And then there's a sort of passive, like, oh yeah, I love game shows. That was the first time I'd ever met somebody in that first category, that like inner circle of people who, know the obscure references and they're not shy to talk about it. And I remember having a lot of difficulty talking about game shows out loud, because I think for so long, like you said, I had been used to hiding it and not necessarily speaking my truth when it comes to how much I love this stuff.
Yeah. Suddenly I'm reminded of one of my biggest regrets, Christian, is not going to a taping of The Price is Right when Bob Barker was hosting, as you got to do for, I want to say it was the last week or the last 2 weeks of shows for him. When I was in college, the thought did cross my mind that, hey, maybe I could find some other people and we could try to go out to LA. And but in the end, that thought didn't last very long, because that's not what everybody around me was talking about or thinking about. And I just kind of got caught up in just sort of regular, I don't know, normal college life. And so game shows were kind of, repressed during that time. And again, that huge regret of not going to The Price is Right when I really should have. I regret that. I regret not having confidence in myself and in my love of game shows until, I hate to say it, until it was too late. Because had the awakening earlier, I'm pretty sure that I would have gone and seen Bob. It's one of my biggest regrets, strangely enough. Oh, and I do want to mention also, Christian, too, that around that time when I was on Wheel of Fortune, and especially after my appearance, my brother introduced me to the world of Usenet news groups, where there was an alt.tv.game shows group
Right.
that he introduced me to. And then I discovered that, wow, there are a lot of people who love and talk about game shows here, even way more than I do. And I was just in awe of this community, and started participating and joining in that community where I could. But that was really helpful, again, for me to see as well. My brother had posted about my Wheel of Fortune episode there, and then there were game show fans who were responding and telling him that they had seen me play and congratulating me for doing my for being entertaining, while in spite of having not won any money on the show. I think that proved to be very comforting to me, as one where that was my first game show appearance, and I was going all out for it, and I finished with nothing except for consolation prizes. But then to actually experience support from a community of people, not just my brother, but this community of people that I've never met in person, but they were supportive and congratulatory of me, and that was great too. And I think that helped me to continue with my love of game shows going forward.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, that affirmation is key. One of the things I've noticed I'll say within the last 10 years or so, and I think it comes with the advent and the expansion of social media and that presence in our lives. This phenomenon of contestants that are on a show during a certain season coming together and talking about their experiences with each other and congratulating each other and becoming like lifelong friends.
Yeah.
This idea of camaraderie among the contestants of a certain season of a game show. And again, I think because it's so easy to find them and group them together, and these days we're always encouraged to share our experiences. I think that's a wonderful thing for game shows. And one of the things I love about game shows is that period afterwards. I should say one of the things I love about, having become a contestant is that period afterwards where you get to see the people that were there in your tape day. You get to find out that there were other people that were on the show during your season and they're happy for you and you're happy for them. Wheel of Fortune has that. Jeopardy famously has that. But Wheel of Fortune's fan group, their fandom is very colorful and very diverse and engaging and excitable. And I love talking to them for this podcast. So you are in esteemed company, my friend.
Well, I would say, though, Christian, that back in the 90s, though, when I was on the show in the late 90s, I don't think that community of alumni actually existed. I think there may have been attempts to try to stay connected with people that you taped with, but that didn't really become a thing, I think, until more of the 2000s, maybe even the late 2000s, and especially the early 2010s. I think that's when that became a lot more solidified. And I'm very appreciative that I was welcomed into the growing Wheel of Fortune community in the 2010s as people were getting on the show and groups were being formed to be able to connect, and they invited me because they saw my posts on social media, and I got involved on By a Vowel boards, that online community of Wheel fans and former contestants, and they invited me into these group chats and Facebook groups, and through that, 20 years later, really 15 to 20 years later, becoming engaged with the Wheel of Fortune community at that time. And I am so grateful for that community in terms of the friendships that have been formed, where we do talk a lot about game shows that we're just watching on TV, or game shows that we are getting on. But there also have been just some really solid friendships that have been developed. One in particular, which I didn't think that I would be sharing about this. You may be familiar with Emile de Leon, who's famous for his new baby buggy solve.
I am familiar with him. Absolutely.
Oh, yes. I think it was back in 2013, 2014. I can't remember. To me, he was as a fan of the show. I was a huge a fan of him. And never in my wildest dreams would I ever have thought that through the course of the development of the Wheel of Fortune community and my inclusion in that community, that I had the privilege of becoming friends with Emile, and actually even got to meet him in person for the very first time last year when we attended the 8,000th episode of Wheel of Fortune and Pat's final weeks of shows together as a Wheel community. But I met him then, and I got to thank him actually because in person. Because Emile was as a nurse by profession. When my parents were going through various health crises from around 2016, even to the present, Emile was my go-to source for medical advice, trying to understand what was happening to my parents, especially my mom, um, who had passed away a few years ago, but had a stroke back in 2016. But Emil was able to counsel me on the things that I was seeing that was happening to my mom and the treatment that she was receiving, and also offered just a lot of encouragement and prayer in addition to some medical advice. I am just eternally grateful for that. And it's something that was only made possible through our connection as Wheel of Fortune alumni. And I know that you've talked about this on the podcast on multiple occasions of there being some kind of there has to be something very divine, like divine appointments that seem to happen in the game show world, and I really do see a Wheel of Fortune and Emil as being godsends to me to support me through some very difficult times in my life, and to me that blessing from game shows is probably the most precious to me beyond any actual appearance being on a show. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. That must have been a very emotional meeting, having met him in person for the first time after going through so much with him.
Yeah, when I saw him, it was at Dave and Buster's where alumni were gathering in advance of the attending the Wheel of Fortune tapings the next day. When I saw him, it was almost right out of some of my game show appearances. I made a beeline for him, and I grabbed him and I dragged him to the ground.
I can
can't pick him up
imagine.
first, and it was celebratory, but then it got very, very serious as I shared with him what I just shared with you, and yeah, I am hoping though that I'm able to meet game show friends in person more often. I think there's a tremendous amount of benefit to that. Actually, in my profession, we talk about for IT teams, even when teams are remote, they truly can't become the highest performing teams that they can possibly be if they just interact over Zoom only. There's something powerful, even just every so often, making face-to-face in-person connections that really solidifies the working relationship. And I feel that that's the case too in terms of my game show relationships as well. And I'm meeting more and more folks in person, and I'm hoping that will continue. There's just something very special about that.
Absolutely. That's good for you. It's good for your soul. I feel like all of my game show friends were initially people that I knew online, even coming down to Cory Anotado, who I met him via MySpace, playing one of his games online at the library when I was like 14,
Oh my goodness.
So they're all people that I initially had that connection with online or digitally. And then to meet them in person, I feel like what it does is that I'm not a I'll put I don't know how else to describe it, but it almost like completes the circle in a way.
Yeah.
Where now there's like a full connection to that person.
Yeah.
And I don't know if because the type of person I am or if that's human nature in general, but I need that in person. I need that face to face. I need that interpersonal. During COVID, one of the hardest things was doing the stuff that I liked to do via Zoom. I don't have the timing for it, and I don't have the I don't have the ability to treat my laptop as another human face. I just can't emote in that way. Which also was difficult when it came to Zoom auditions for game shows. How do you view that process, that game show audition process, when it's through something like Zoom? Knowing now what I know about you and the way you feel about in-person work and which I agree with, how do you do on Zoom auditions?
What a fantastic question. Especially because I have experienced in-person auditions. That's the way The Price is Right has always worked, obviously, except during the COVID era. And Wheel of Fortune used to work back in the day before they moved towards nearly being completely digital. I think that they do have every now and then in-person contestant searches in certain cities, but that's rare and few and far between. And then I've also experienced auditioning via Zoom, also being on Let's Make a Deal as one of the traders over Zoom.
Which to me is amazing that anyone could. So the idea that anyone could leverage that much energy for a game like Let's Make a Deal by themselves at home in front of their webcam. I don't know how you did it, but God bless you. I could never.
So the secret, and it's something that I figured out pretty quickly. And I'm trying to think of what actually made me figure this out. But I determined that I needed to treat any Zoom audition or any Zoom appearance on a game show like Let's Make a Deal as if the actual person were in front of me. Because I knew that, especially for the auditions, I knew that eventually they would see me in person. And I wanted to make sure that the person that they saw is the person who they saw over Zoom, and that there were no surprises. Actually, that reminds me for the $100,000 pyramid, when we went through several grueling rounds of auditions for season 1. I believe they've done the same for subsequent seasons. And I was ecstatic when I got the invite to get flown up to New York to be on the show. And when I was sitting there in the green room, and I was just going bonkers over everything that was going on, everything that was being said, even when Law had to come in and talk about the rules and various legal implications of being on the show and our contestant agreements. I was just reacting and responding to everything as if I were in a candy store. And I actually heard the senior contestant producer on the side of the room whisper, but loudly enough for me to be able to hear, to her colleague, you see that guy over there? You see Eugene? That's why we picked him, because he reacts to everything. And I was like, oh, okay.
Gold.
And I think that's something that they had noticed of me during the Zoom auditions, that I was reacting to everything that was happening. Just seeing them appear on the screen and greeting them wholeheartedly and reacting to the gameplay material, to every win or loss, to every piece of advice that they had to share or feedback that they had to share or instructions that they gave for the next steps in the process. I was reacting to all of that. And again, I think a lot of that was subconscious, but again, I think it was also, I had this philosophy that I want to be true to myself and not hide anything about myself over Zoom. And I've heard that a lot when it comes to Zoom meetings, that people can hide themselves behind their camera or behind their mic, hide what they're truly kind of thinking or feeling. But I generally, not the way I operate, not my philosophy. And I think that has been what has helped me a lot. I thinking about Let's Make a Deal for just a moment. I actually remember getting frustrated when Wayne Brady and I were interacting somehow, and I so badly wanted to hug him because I had hugged every other, in-person game show host that I've ever met, but I didn't get a chance to hug him, and I really, really wanted to. And so what I ended up doing, and he allowed it, was I embraced my laptop and pretended that the laptop was him. I wanted to be myself, and I needed something physical. And so I resorted to doing that. And he ended up doing the same by hugging the monitor screen that I was on. And it was like, that was
beautiful.
Yes, it was a beautiful moment, and it kind of shows that it is possible to be able to get the benefits of in-person interactions remotely, and admittedly still not the same, but there's still a way that you can be able to maximize that experience.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a wonderful way of doing it. If I'm thinking about it in like an acting frame of mind, that's a great choice that you made.
Yeah, I actually, I do want to bring up the acting point for just a moment because I'm reminded of a colleague of mine who asked me how, on the game shows that he has seen me be on, how did I get into character? It was all an act, right? Like, how did you end up putting on the act of being that way and of being that enthusiastic? And I told him I didn't plan any of that. It just kind of happened. And he didn't believe me. And it made me kind of question myself a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. I'm surprised at how many people think that it's staged, or you're told to to behave that way. And I guess the cynical way TV is these days, I guess it's not completely unheard of, that you'd be coached to act excited. But no, and I tell everyone who asks that or asks about it, talk to anyone who's been on The Price is Right. Being on The Price is Right is the epitome of that experience. That is the essence of excitement. There's something about I don't know if it's like the feng shui of the set, or there's something about the air in The Price is Right, and I'm sure it's the same at their new studio now. You can't not be excited or engaged at The Price is Right, and being called down, it's like cracking the top of a creme brulee. Like, there's nothing like that experience.
Yes, and I think going back to the whole Zoom question. That I tell folks that are auditioning for game shows today, most of which are over Zoom, that they need to get themselves in a mode where they're in person with the people that they're talking to, that they're actually in studio with them. When you are practicing, don't think it's practice. Put yourself in the mode that you're actually on the show playing the game, and really don't try to be fake, but at the same time you've got to elevate bring out the best and most energetic version of your personality as possible. And for me, I think that that's something that I've been able to sort of naturally do without thinking. But for others, I think it can be a challenge, especially over Zoom, where you have that tendency of thinking that you can sort of hide behind the camera. That's the last thing that you want to do. You have to take on a new mindset, especially when it comes to Zoom auditions.
I usually ask in these interviews, when we get to the topic of the audition, how do you find success in turning up your personality? How do you turn it up? And I love to know what people's strategies are when it comes to that. Eugene, as a person, at the end of the day, when you're having a rough day, no game shows involved, how do you turn it down? How do you reduce the energy that you're burning and take it easy?
Wow. I think that's something I am still learning how to do today. I would say that my default answer is that, I know this is going to be surprising to hear, but I am an introvert. Officially,
I
based on
it,
the personality tests that I've taken, there is certainly an extroverted side of me, but there's just so much energy that is expended being extroverted, especially when it comes to game shows or doing things related to game shows, that when it's all said and done, I will revert back towards withdrawing from people and from society. And I will tend to just stay at home and spend time with my family, watch Korean dramas on TV, spend some time reading and praying, But almost to the point where maybe it's too much withdrawal, and I think that can get
Sure.
me into trouble sometimes, and just getting kind of too lazy. And so that's why I'm trying to find a better balance when
Yeah.
it comes to that.
Oh,
There's
I
just too
get it.
many extremes. Either I'm all out and going nuts and screaming at the top of my lungs, or I'm very withdrawn and very quiet and not talking to anybody very much, except for, the absolute set of people that I need to talk to.
I saw a post on the game show forum. This must have been a decade ago, if not more. And I don't remember who it was, but they were explaining, I think it was in a thread about how game shows have benefited you as a person, not as a contestant or as somebody who likes game shows or games, but just as a person. And they mentioned the fact that they are better at explaining things to people they're training at work because they grew up hearing Bob Barker describe the rules of pricing games. He's teaching somebody how to play a game 6 times a day, 5 days a week, and he only has a few seconds in which to do it. And so I think that this person was taking that skill and applying it to a professional setting. As somebody who works in IT, does the poetry of game show rules and the way things are explained have any influence on the way that you go about solving a problem?
100%, Christian. Actually, um, I'm very thankful for my current role in IT, where I coach teams and facilitate teams to be better at solving problems. And so I facilitate a lot of training sessions and a lot of workshops. And I really do it in a way where I'm channeling um, some of my idols as game show hosts, and I really kind of I follow their example, and I channel their energy, and for lack of a better word, I host these training sessions and these workshops in a way where, yes, I'm able to explain the rules and make sure that everyone is understanding the rules and abiding by those rules and playing by those rules well. But then I also add the excitement that a good host often brings to the show. I try to get the people that are in my workshops and in my training sessions, to get them talking, to get them contributing, and applauding them for it, affirming them for it, just like a good game show host would. And when the result is a positive result, I will celebrate as if it were a game show win. That's actually something that I've modeled after other coaches in IT who aren't game show fans, but they're all about applauding every single good thing that anybody does, or any good outcome that happens as a result of doing a problem solving exercise. They would applaud, and then everyone else would they think it's strange at first, but then eventually, because of the persistence of the facilitator, the other participants would applaud as well. And so there is this connection to game shows. There is certainly this game show feel that ends up happening when you facilitate these sessions well, and that's what I've experienced and try to bring to my work. And I often will share clips of my game show appearances as kind of an award, a reward. I'm sorry, a reward to the participants at these events that I facilitate,
That's
to help
wonderful.
keep the energy level high, because they're seeing me being very excited in whatever game show I was on.
Sure. Oh, yeah. If you're putting yourself out there, how could they not? And I
Right.
going back to what you just said about celebrating every successful step in the process. I am such a firm believer in that. There is no negative consequence from encouragement. Encouragement has no downside.
Yeah, I have to respond to that as well. I know I said like positive outcome, but even failure can be a negative. I'm sorry, even failure, although often considered to be a negative outcome, can actually be a very positive outcome that can be celebrated, especially when it's an opportunity to show empathy to one another and to figure out, okay, how can we learn from this mistake and do better next time? Um, I, I have to mention this story in relation to this. So I attended a taping of The Price is Right back in December, last December, and I was in the audience and I was wearing a shirt that had my previous appearance on the show on it, where I lost badly in my pricing game called Squeeze Play, where I picked the wrong number. And when Drew revealed that I had picked the wrong number, I fell to the floor and hit my head. And so I had this on my shirt, and Drew saw this, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, tell me about what happened here." And I said, "Well, I was on the show, 10 years ago, and the result wasn't that great. It was very tragic." And then Drew said to me, he said, "There's no such thing, Eugene, as tragedy on The Price is Right." Oh man, that awakened just so many thoughts in me about failure culture in the professional world, and particularly in IT, where that attitude is so critical to have in order to develop your workforce to really achieve their ultimate potential, to be able to take risks and do them early without fear of retribution. Drew's philosophy, I think, is something that I have been striving and want to strive even more to bring into the workplace through my profession going forward.
Oh, it's incredible. There is no such thing as tragedy on The Price is Right.
Yes.
How could you not love a show like that?
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable. Eugene, I want to talk about, how do I want to say this? Let me do it this way. I'm going to assume from the stories that you've told me and from what I know about you and from what I've seen of you, that you are an aspiring game show host, or you would at least not turn down the opportunity to be a game show host. And that's something that we have in common. Over the past couple of years, I've had these thoughts about whether it's possible to find fulfillment in a career that's not game show host, but definitely checks a lot of the boxes. I talk fairly often about my career in hospitality and how, I've always wanted to be a game show host, always wanted to be in broadcasting, but in this career, I've found a job where I get to dress really nice, I get to talk to people, I get to be that welcoming voice, I get to give out free stuff once in a while, and in that way, I don't know if it's a cop-out or not, but I feel fulfillment in that career in a way that I don't know that I would as a game show host, dealing with Hollywood and agents and all of that is like, it just seems daunting to me. Do you think that there's fulfillment to be found in your career the way that you might find it in doing something like hosting a game show?
Yeah. So I'm having memories, flashbacks to my childhood where I do remember sharing with people, maybe for reports for school, that I had a dream of hosting a game show one day. And it was always kind of something in the back of my head that I always wanted to do. Growing up, I did host a lot of home game playings of various game shows with my brother, and sometimes occasionally with friends as well. And when I started working in IT, I actually didn't experience a whole lot of fulfillment in my career that I thought that I would. And especially in comparison to, what it might be like to be a game show host. And so I questioned whether or not, um, my career and the company that I worked for, whether they were the right things for me and whether I was really making, um, the best choices in my life career-wise. Um, in the end, though, I decided not to leave my company, and I've actually stayed with the same company for the last 27 years. I've been with the same company, and I'm
Wonderful.
glad that I did that because um, as as people started discovering my game show appearances and hearing about them at work, I started getting a lot of offers to host things. Um, First and foremost, I got to host game shows. And as long as they were themed to whatever it is that the company needed or a particular work group needed. So I've hosted so many different game shows under the sun. I've hosted Wheel of Fortune. I've hosted Jeopardy. I've hosted a lot of Family Feud. I've hosted the $100,000 Pyramid. I've hosted things like Minute to Win It. Um, uh, just I got the opportunity to actually host game shows at work and be paid for it. That's part of my job. And
Right. And isn't
yeah,
that the dream? I mean, isn't
yes,
that the dream?
yeah,
Right?
and
And when you have it as a kid, I feel like there's no way to conceptualize how that dream can manifest itself in your teenage years and your adult years. Like, that dream could take the form of any number of things. I mean, it brought you in an indirect way. It sounds like it brought you to IT, or at least kept you in IT. It brought me to luxury hospitality. I mean, who would have ever guessed those things? But here we are, working jobs that allow us to flex those muscles and also maintain a career that's not that. It's is that the dream fulfilled? It kind of feels like it is sometimes.
I definitely think so. Since as a kid, I had dreamed of being a game show host as a career, and in the end, it is a percentage of my career today. I can't say that 100% of the time I am hosting game shows or developing game shows, but at least I could say, 5% of the time that's true. And I think what's really been helpful too is that even outside of work, I've had plenty of opportunities to be able to host events and to host game shows at church, and as well as events for weddings for for my friends, and even in a fan community for a television show called Kim's Convenience. I had the opportunity of being able to host Family Feud remotely with some of the minor characters on the show for a big fan event, and that was something else. So the dream, I can definitely say, to my childhood self, has been fulfilled, but probably not in sort of the traditional way or the way that you would expect it.
Yeah, for sure. I like it this way. I think there's less paperwork, and I think there's less complication, and there's less stress. I kind of like living the dream this way, don't you?
Well, and absolutely, Christian, and I think because you had mentioned earlier about, you had, in your question, you asked that if I would get offered a job as a game show host today, professionally, that I would accept it. I actually am not sure if I would accept that job because
Yeah.
it comes with potentially needing to move and changes that I would have to make to my lifestyle, and I wouldn't have control over my choices as much. I might not actually say yes to that if it would impact other commitments that I have to people and to organizations.
Sure. I mean, that's fulfillment. If the real thing comes around and what you're doing now seems preferable to that, I mean, that sounds like success in a lot of ways.
And I did get to host HQ Trivia that one time.
That's exactly what this is all leading to, because I need to. So I want to hear. Okay, so we're gonna make a deal. I'm gonna tell you. So you're gonna tell me the story of your journey into the experience of co-hosting an episode of HQ. And for those of you who don't remember, HQ was the live trivia app that went on every night at 9 p.m. and they gave out real money. And it was hosted by Scott Rogowski. It was a sensation for like a year, and then it went away, sadly.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me the story of how you co-hosted that, and I'll tell you about my audition to be the host of HQ.
Ooh, yes. Okay, well, I have to start with my love for HQ. So started playing back in 2017, I believe it was, and just could not believe how HQ was able to capture all of the elements of an amazing game show experience and to pull it off daily, even sometimes multiple times a day, for a player playing anywhere in the world, in the palm of their hands.
And live. And it was live.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
And so I talked about, being a lover of game shows, the fact that I got to play one every single day with this kind of with a professional host and with good the good writing of question material, although that became somewhat questionable over time. And the user experience within the app, even though it was confined to the limits of your phone, it really, to me, felt like you were in studio, actually playing something like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to me. And I felt the same excitement, the same nervousness. I reacted loudly in despair when I got questions wrong, and in elation when I got them right, just like I did on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I just thought it was the perfect thing. And so when HQ offered 2 years later this being able to audition for a special promotion that they were doing to be able to co-host HQ Trivia, I jumped on it right away. I think they had you submit an audition video where you basically introduced yourself and why you liked HQ, and to read a sample question. And then the folks at HQ then reviewed all of the submissions, and I hope that there were quite a few, and they whittled it down to a top 3, and I was one of those top 3. I have no idea. Excuse me. I have no idea what they did in order to whittle it down to the top 3, but somehow I managed to be in the top 3, and then. Sometime mid-year, I want to say it was around July, they did a vote to the HQ community that, hey, here are the top 3, vote now. And I ended up receiving, I think, some 43% of the votes, something like that, but it was higher than the other 2 finalists. And so I won. And I kind of reminiscent to when I got on Wheel of Fortune back in 1998. I ran around my kitchen and living room, acting like a complete loon and screaming off the top of my head and concerning all the people around me. And so the journey began from there. They set up all the arrangements in a hotel in Manhattan, and they flew me up there, all expenses paid, and I got to travel to New York in September of 2019, and got to visit their headquarters, which was mind blowing in and of itself. And they threw out the red carpet for me, and they welcomed me, and I got to embrace all of the hosts at that time, Matt Richards and Anna Roisman for HQ
Right.
Words.
Oh, they were
And,
great as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
they were fantastic. The legit game show hosts in my book, without question. Even though
Sure.
they didn't have, I don't think they had any game show hosting experience beforehand, but they were just naturals at it, and
Yes,
did a great
they
job with
were.
their respective games. But I got to experience for the first time kind of all of the behind the scenes things that typically happen or you hear that happen at a game show, but as a contestant, you never really get to be a part of it. So for example, when I arrived at HQ, one of the first things that we did was we sat down with the host, the head writer, the producer, and we actually went through all of the question material together. We actually reviewed all of the teleprompter notes that would be appearing, and on the spot, we talked about things that may need to be changed, things that I might do in response to things coming out of the teleprompter or in regards to a particular question, and in some cases, we made some major changes to the original set of questions and the original script. And
How
it was
fascinating it must have been to be in on that part of the process.
Oh yes, I had heard for years that Alex Trebek had done something like that with Jeopardy, where he got to see all the questions in advance and to read through them and to offer his feedback on them. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be able to get to do something similar. And so then after that, we went into rehearsal. So I don't think we did all of the questions, but we did enough where all of the major transitions were the beginning and the end. And I think there was a special prize questions where you could get out early and get a part of the cash prize. We practiced some of that. So then rehearsals took place. And then after rehearsals, there was all this. I got to meet the staff and the social media folks and the those that they're involved in the promotion of the app. They were bouncing off different ideas on each other about how we could hype up the game that day or that night, and they bounced some of those ideas off of me. and one of the ideas
amazing.
that came about from that, I don't think this was my idea. I want to say it might have been Russ Yusupov's, the CEO of HQ, who suggested that all of the player avatars be changed to a picture of me. And then the social media staff said, "Great, let's Eugene, give us a whole bunch of pictures of you that we can use, and then that we can replace different groups of people playing the game with your picture." I said, "Okay." And
That's
so
amazing.
I got to be involved in all that. And then, I got to actually host the show, and it went, I think it went so well. And actually the staff afterwards gave me the feedback that it went so well that they wanted me to be involved in HQ Words, the show that would follow HQ Trivia.
Right.
Originally, the plan was that I would only co-host HQ Trivia, but they saw how well HQ Trivia went that they said, "Hey, come and co-host with Anna Roisman for Words as well." And so I think we did a quick run through those puzzles, and there wasn't a whole lot of time for rehearsal, but we did a quick rehearsal. I didn't co-host for the entire game. I think the producer had mentioned that if we had known that this is what you were capable of doing, that we would have had you co-host more. But as it stands now, we'll try to pull you in whenever we can to work with Anna Roisman on words. And it must have been all of the experience that I've had having been a contestant and having hosted a lot of game shows at work and at home and at church. And all that experience kind of came into play where they had someone who was, I guess, experienced enough to be able to host another show. And then afterwards, there was a kind of a wrap party where we, the staff and the host hung out and spent time together and talked about what happened. And it was, and we toasted to each other through various forms of beverages that existed. And it was like a wrap party that you might have on an actual, show that's on TV. And so again, I don't really know if this is the experience for sure on some of the game shows that I've been on, but it sounds a lot like it. That the experience is just very similar. Maybe not as professionally done, because they're the folks that were running HQ, not necessarily all in the entertainment industry, so they don't have that background, I think, of what all of the major game shows do. But gosh, it sure felt like a realistic experience. I got a taste of what it's like to be behind the scenes of a game show, as a host.
Make no mistake, Eugene. HQ is a game show. You were a game show host for a night. You did it. That's a real experience. That's so much fun. Any difficulty in the idea that it was a remote thing? I know you talked about that need for, that sort of human connection. Was it difficult for you to get into that mindset initially?
So, yes, but I think the same principle that I applied to those remote auditions, I think still applied here. I took advantage of every physical person that was present. So obviously Matt or Anna were there. A producer was always present in the room. And so I fed off of their energy, and that kept me really engaged. I also made sure that I was monitoring the chat. So when you're on camera, in addition to the teleprompter, there was another monitor that showed, I think, the running chat. And so I was able to look at that while hosting, and catch some of the messages that were scrolling by, and reacted to those things as if they were actually there. Or when I was off camera, you still have the ability to be able to see the scrolling view as well. So I put myself, in the position of doing my best to pretend that everybody that was actually playing was there with me. And I made a lot of friends, fellow HQs. I've made a lot of friends over the years playing HQ. And so it helped that I knew that they were reacting and responding and having a good time. Even if I didn't see the chat messages, I kind of envisioned them having a blast with it.
Sure. And you're having fun doing it. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a friend of mine. I was getting ready to DJ a wedding and I was nervous about whether it would go well, whether they'd like it. And he said, if you have fun, they have fun. And that guided so much of this part of my life, that if you're out there having fun, clearly having fun, people are very perceptive. They could tell fake fun from real fun. And real fun is contagious. You can't not be engaged with somebody who's clearly having the time of their life, which clearly you were, seeing you host it.
And there were moments where in the chat I did catch some messages from players that didn't like the way that I was hosting, that they said that I was too loud or that it was too much, and they they had wanted somebody else to have won the contest. Like I did catch some of those messages, and I did remember having to tell myself, I need to put those out of mind, focus on all the positive messages, and simply focus on having fun, hosting the show, and and that's the way that I can best serve the HQ community and make this game the most fun that it can be. And that's kind of the philosophy too of being on game shows as well, that you shouldn't focus on being successful in terms of winning the big bucks and having those big wins, but you have to you're going to be miserable if you don't succeed in those ways, and you're going to miss out on some of the more intangible things that really the best part about the whole experience is the fact that you're having the experience and you're having fun and you're meeting all these people and you're there in the studio and you're experiencing a show that you've wanted to be on for so long. I applied the same principle, I think, when it came to hosting. Just focus on that, and everything else will fall into place.
For sure. So my audition was for HQX.
Yes.
It was you remember HQX. It was
I do.
Yeah, the way they pitched it to me, because it was before it had premiered, the way they pictured it to me was it was HQ, but there was more of an emphasis on photo questions.
Yes.
Things to do with it was a little more visual than HQ. And so I signed up to audition. I had gotten a casting notice from a company that actually it was the company that put me on Match Game. And I don't remember if this was before or after Match Game, but it was the same casting agency. I responded to one of their calls, and within like 48 hours, I got a script in my email. And they said, set up, if you have a green screen, great. If you don't, fine. But set up the camera vertical. We want to see you the way you would look if you were hosting HQ, and play through this game. Pretend you're talking to a million people playing, and just do your best. And so that's what I did. I moved my mattress out of the way, and I went and got like my beard trimmed and my eyebrows trimmed and everything, and I really took it seriously, because it was an opportunity to do the thing. The thing was there, and if I did it well enough, I could actually have it. And so I took it really seriously. I really treated it, and I guess the way you would say, Eugene, I treated it like it was the real show, because that, you can't go wrong with that energy. If you're taking their product seriously, it's hard to disrespect that. But I had the time of my life, and I don't know if you had this experience in hosting HQ, but some of the skills that I feel are like necessary as a host, and the things that I try to emulate in the way that I communicate, they came out almost effortlessly. It was like when under pressure, I just knew what to do. It just felt so right and felt so smooth and genuine, and I could tell that when they watch this, they're going to have fun watching it. And I didn't get it. A couple days later, I got an email that said, they found somebody else. And I don't think HQX or even HQ in general lasted too much longer after that anyway, unfortunately. But it was one of those moments, and I've had a few of those, where I don't know if it's God or the universe or what, but I feel like it lets me get so close to that version of the dream. Just close enough to like see it up close and to like touch it. But then it goes away, like something I don't, and to this day, and this is a positive. To this day, I think something is preventing me from getting to that, but also keeping me in this fulfilling position in this life, doing what I'm doing and enjoying what I'm enjoying on my terms, as opposed to doing it, for an agent or for a producer.
Question: when you auditioned for HQX, was there an audience, or it was just a recording of yourself pretending that you were interacting with an audience, and then you sent that in?
Correct. It was instructions on how to upload the video. Yeah, it wasn't live. It was instructions on how to upload the video, and it was a script. They had a game, and I could probably pull it up in my email. It's in there somewhere, but yeah, they just had me reenact a game and submit the video.
I'm sad that your audition was that way, where they just recorded you pretending to be interacting with an audience, because my understanding of all of the auditions for HQ Words and HQ Trivia in the past, that they were actually done with an audience. So they brought the person auditioning into the studio and actually ran an internal game with HQ staff. But the host had an opportunity of actually interacting with real people online.
I would have liked
and-
to do that. It's hard to fake actual interaction.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like almost your audition was unfair, because I don't think that the HQ got a chance to see kind of the real you. I feel like, Christian, I've witnessed you on the 24-hour game show marathon, and the way that you host and you play and you interact with those that are interacting with the show. Is it through Twitch or through YouTube comments? I can't remember what, but you
Twitch
you
and
see,
YouTube, yeah.
Right. You see people interacting with the show, and you see those comments, and you see those posts on social media and things like that. And so, and you've got all these real people around you too, that you're putting on Game Show Marathon with. And I feel like that's the real you, that I suspect, I don't know if that would have come through as well on just a recording of you pretending to be interacting with people. That would have been really hard for me to have done.
Well, right. And I don't know that I found it to be too difficult, but yes, I definitely would have preferred being able to do it, to do it for real, as opposed to, a recording. But honestly, everything happens for a reason, and I don't know what the reason is that this opportunity didn't materialize. I could say the same for several other similar opportunities that don't come through. There's a reason, and I just have to trust that there's something or someone more powerful than me that knows where this is headed. So I just have to trust that. You know what I mean?
And I support that completely. I mean, if it's any consolation, HQX came a bit too late to be successful. It struggled. It was a good premise, kind of like sort of an Instagram, I guess, or a Snapchat, where players would post photos related to a theme, and then you would vote on your favorite photos from other players for each theme, and the person that got the most votes in the end, after 5 rounds or something like that, won the show. I actually won once, which I'm very proud of.
Wonderful.
So good premise, but again, a little bit too late, because HQ was dying at that point, and the app was struggling with stability issues and some gameplay problems, and from disruption of service attacks, I think, as well, and from fake players and all that kind of thing. And they weren't able to handle that well. And so HQX, although in principle a great idea, was kind of doomed to fail anyway. So kind of a
I
consolation.
dodged a bullet, is what you're saying.
I think so. Although that being said, if you're familiar with, are you familiar with Matt Friend?
Yes. How do I know that name?
So Matt Friend has a huge social media following now, doing a lot of impersonations, particularly of Donald Trump.
Oh, yes. I've seen him do Howard Stern.
Sure, he's Howard Stern.
Yeah.
He's offered on the red carpet for various award shows, and I think he's recently recorded parts impersonating Jeff Goldblum on The Simpsons, I think, and on Family Guy. So his career has taken off, and it all started with him doing stand-up and getting to be the host of HQX. He was the officially named host for HQX, and he hosted for as long as the show lasted. And he was a great host. He was fun to fun to play with because he had all of those impersonations that he was able to do, and that was his shtick. That was his thing in hosting.
Well,
but again,
I'm glad somebody good got it. Honestly.
well, I think it helped. I think it ended up establishing him for what he really enjoyed doing, and he was able to get his name more out there because of that brief stint on HQX, and now he's fairly well known in the entertainment community, and so as a result, his career most definitely blossomed, and he's kind of finding his place in this world. But again, I'm not saying that, oh, Christian, that should have been you and it should have been you. But
No.
I don't know if you're necessarily thinking about wanting something more in order to be fulfilled. I feel like there's so many amazing things that have come your way, and things that you are doing today where it seems like that you're in a good place in terms of having fulfilled your dreams. I don't know. Well, not that I should be interviewing you, but
No, I don't.
What do
I
you
don't
think
mind.
about that?
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it so often lately. Like I said, it's something that's come up over the past. It's come up in my mind over the past couple of years that what's next. I think of the dream of wanting to host a game show, and I think of all the different ways that dream has manifested itself, whether it's been the game show marathon, it's been this podcast, it's been any opportunity I've had to, host things in person. Like you said, having people ask you to come be the host of things. I've gotten to do that, and I realized that the dream of living in California and becoming famous and having all those pressures really wasn't as big a part of that dream as I thought, upon closer inspection. And so I think that, how do I say it? One of the resolutions I have for myself this year, other than creating the podcast, is to take some time and enjoy media rather than worrying about what I'm going to do next or worry about what I'm going to get on next. Just taking that time for myself and maybe not focus so much on performing as I should be focusing on being an audience. The dream is what it is, and I do feel fulfilled professionally. Like you said, would I take the opportunity to go to Hollywood and do the thing? I mean, that's a long discussion. I wouldn't say yes, I wouldn't say no. That would be a very long discussion, and at this point, the roots that I have in this life are so strong and of such great quality that I don't know that I would want to cut those off. It definitely feels like an interesting place to be in life. I'm very grateful for all the stuff that I've gotten to do, and if I sit back and think about it, and I think about it once in a while, being the kid that used to sit in front of the TV on the floor and watch the USA Network and watch Press Your Luck, that kid got to do all this stuff. Sometimes I think about that, and even that reflection is its own reward in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. There is something to be said about being content with where you are today and what you've gotten to experience so far. And I think through that contentment that more blessings will come. But even if they don't come because of the contentment, it's still okay.
Right.
It's kind of a weird philosophy to have. But it's something that I hold on to. I do want to say, Christian, that you are an important figure to me in the game show community. That this podcast that I'm blessed to be a guest on is one of the handful of podcasts that I subscribe to today and that I listen to every single episode. I can't, again, I can count on one hand two hands actually, the number of podcasts that I subscribe to, and you are one of those. Your podcast is one of those.
Thank you very much. That is appreciated more than you know. Thank you.
And then secondly, not to play favorites, and I apologize to any of your friends that are listening to this episode of the podcast. You are my absolute favorite person to watch on the 24-hour game show marathon. And I do my best to tune in as much as I can every single year. And I will never forget my favorite interaction or moment of watching you on Game Show Marathon. It was where you were playing Pressure Luck. And maybe it was, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And there's something called spin fever, and your reaction to landing on the special space spin fever was just electric. Like I felt like your reaction to landing on that space, I felt like I was in the studio audience with you and going nuts with you. And I felt the energy, even though I was not in the room. And there was a point, I believe, where you had a spin left or something, and all you needed to do was avoid the whammy to win the game in this episode of Pressure Luck that you were playing. I don't know if you knew it was me, but I submitted a donation as the board was spinning at that moment, where I believe that ended up bringing the total contribution amount over, I think, the initial target, I think. And then you reacted to that. And I was like, yay, I'm getting to see Christian react to my contribution that made them go over
you? I know exactly
the threshold.
Yeah, you were the one that pushed us over by a penny.
Yes. I did that on purpose.
That was you.
That exact amount.
God.
And I saw you react to that. And I was beside myself. And then you landed on the whammy. After that moment of elation, hey, we met our target, we're above our target by a penny, yay! And you left off the whammy, and then in a good way, all hell broke loose.
It was incredible.
Everyone was beside themselves.
Somebody hit the wrong button when that happened, and all of our commercials and promos played at the same time and crashed our computer. That's what. So I was explaining this. And thank you, Eugene, for all the kind words, and I'll learn how to accept them one day. But when that happened, so I hit my button and I got a whammy, and everybody like dispersed, like it was like somebody dropped a bomb in the studio, you know. And so I ran up to, and I don't think anyone noticed this. And I was playing around. I ran up to Bob's podium and I grabbed his microphone and I said I was going to hang myself with it for losing all that money. Okay, and as soon as I grabbed his microphone, something happened to one of our computers where all the commercials and promos and everything played simultaneously. So anyone watching at home like you, they just saw this just a mass destruction.
I might have missed that entirely because I still think I was laughing like crazy. So I may have completely missed that. But I have to. I mean, I do have to say that it's strange saying this, but I want to say that is probably one of my favorite game show moments of all time, and I will always remember that moment. I mean, we talk about New Baby Buggy and Emilio de Leon and that amazing solve. I'm going to remember that moment in the same memory, the same line of memory in my brain. I am going to remember that final spin on Game Show Marathon with you hitting that whammy and what had transpired before then. And so you are a part of my love for game shows and my overall game show experience. And so it's fitting for me to say that on this podcast.
That is a massive honor, Eugene. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, and that's where I guess my encouragement to you is that that's where there's a lot of fulfillment that comes from reflecting on how much you've experienced, how much you've been able to already impact people. And there can be contentment in that. And that through that contentment, I think the future can come. And so I just wanted to encourage you in that way.
I needed that this week. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. Researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.